your outstanding speaker, Nadeem Azar.
Today we're going to keep it a little casual. I might even share my screen, show you some things. If you have any questions, we'll have some chat opened up later on today. And so you can ask some questions and we will keep it casual and fun. I work with SMBs around the country around security and technology. I know the word compliance scares people, and it's not really regulatory compliance. It is part of it is regulatory compliance, but more importantly, what I'm seeing is that vendors and partners are requiring their subcontractors to have compliance in place or have certain controls in place. And we're going to touch a little bit on that. By the time we're done, you're going to have 3 things that you can implement at your company right away. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, since I said I am going to keep it casual, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open chat for a little bit. Anybody who knows that they use cloud technologies, if you can give me a 3 in chat. Now, of course, if you're dialing in over the phone, you can't do that. But people with computers and Teams app, if you want to give me a 3 in the chat, if you're using cloud technologies, and I will circle back to that while you guys do that. So the question that comes often to mind is, who needs compliance? I want to say that about a year ago in Texas, especially, if you ask somebody about compliance, they were like, we don't want no compliance. You know, it was not looked at the way it's looked at now, since a lot of the breaches and security incidents have happened, right? So now customers and partners are requiring this. Cyber insurance providers are either needing some compliance controls in place, or they will give you huge discounts on premiums if you have controls in place. One of the things that close to my heart is competitive differentiation, and that's one of the things how we got into compliance back in the day. Of course, we're in Texas, so we didn't think much of regulatory stuff. I'll give you that story later on today as well. And it was really interesting how it all came about. Of course, we all want to have reduction in risk. That's a big thing. And then finally, future proofing. And we're going to touch on some tactical things that we can put in place right away to start getting some benefit from this. And like I said, towards the end, we will have a Q&A, so I'm sure you'll have questions. Feel free to ask. We'll have some contact information at the end as well. And also a special thing that we're going to do at the end. So sit tight, and it will be worth your while. One of the things that happens at larger companies is there are some regulatory compliance standards in place. And that makes sense because, especially for companies that are public or companies that are doing business with, for example, DoD or in healthcare, there are some requirements which make sense. Some of these frameworks are like, SOC 2, ISO 27001, or HIPAA. You may have heard of some of these. Even if your business is not regulated, your clients may be. They expect you to align with them on compliance obligations. So this alignment not only helps in winning and retaining clients, but also reduces risk and demonstrates professionalism. This is an inside secret I'm going to tell everybody. IT services is not a regulated industry. Anybody can wake up one day and pretend to be an IT guru and open up shop. That does not make them so. A few years ago, we got a customer. It was a referral from Microsoft, and they were in the insurance business. So they reached out to us and they said that they will engage with us. They wanted us to do some things with them, but we have to have a SOC 2 audit done and we have to be compliant with it, or they can't do business with us. Now, at this time, we did not have anything in place as far as compliance goes, right? So that's when our journey of compliance started because a customer required it of us. Over time, that has kind of gotten to a point where now we are helping a lot of other businesses get compliant and stay compliant. We get businesses compliant very quickly. Typically within 3 months of engaging with them, we get them compliant, and I will go into how we do that and what's the secret behind it. It's no secret, but I will share that with you. That's how we started getting into the compliance space, and the rest is history. Things have changed over the last few months and couple of years. Before, every insurance company out there was offering cyber insurance. And then all of a sudden, something happened and companies stopped offering cyber insurance. And now there's only a handful of companies that offer cyber insurance. This all started with a few big breaches in the industry. And that's when the losses started to mount up. And that's when the insurance company said, okay, we need to rethink this. How are we going to do this? First of all, it's harder to get cyber insurance. A lot of times, people will just not insure you unless you meet certain requirements. And then even if they do insure you, the premiums are going to be significantly higher unless you have certain compliance practices in place. Now, when I say compliance practices, these might be just tools or processes that you implement. For example, you may have noticed on your little flyer that you check off, they will ask you if you have multi-factor authentication enabled, right? If you have documented security policies, if you are doing patch management. I've seen people check these boxes when in fact they don't have these controls in place. And what we're seeing is that if you check a box, the insurance companies don't always verify that you have these things in place. But when there is an incident, they will try to deny it because you were not accurate when you filled out that form. And we've seen either companies paying pennies on the dollar or denying coverage outright because basically they were saying, hey, whether it was intentional or not, you did not give us accurate information, so we're not going to cover you for whatever incident it might be. If you notice, I said when there is an incident. I did not say if there is an incident. When you're working with IT companies, you will probably hear it as when, not if. This is something, especially if you're in the security space, we always want to assume that a security incident is going to happen. And that's how we protect for it, because we want to accommodate for it, we want to mitigate for it. The example I like to give people on this is, think about it like a hurricane. You can mitigate the damage from a hurricane, but you cannot stop a hurricane. That's what security incidents are like. They are hurricanes. We can mitigate and control the damage, but we cannot stop them. If you have an IT company or an IT guy who says he guarantees that you are not going to have a security incident, I would say your radar should be up and you should have some red flags rising up, because nobody in the security space will guarantee you're not going to have an incident. That's a big no-no. Nobody can guarantee that. Like I said, in most cases, you're going to have lower premiums if you do have some of these things in place. And we're going to talk a little bit about what those things are and what some of the low-hanging fruit is that you can implement right away. One of the things that companies use compliance for is competitive differentiation. And I'll give you an example of what we use a lot of times when we are talking to prospects. And there's been a few incidents where they will see that SOC 2 seal on our website or on some of our brochures or something like that. They will ask us, hey, you guys are SOC 2. And then they will notice that none of the other competitors have that SOC 2 seal. That is a differentiator. We've actually closed some deals based on compliance. So compliance is not just that you have to meet certain security requirements just to do business with somebody, but you can actually use it as a tool to help you close more business. There are certain SMBs, small to medium-sized businesses, that are in certain industries supplying parts to other larger businesses. And those larger businesses have now started requiring all their suppliers to have certain compliance in place. So this is becoming more and more of an issue where companies that didn't used to think about compliance in the past are now having to reconsider and rethink this. And it's not as hard as some companies make it out to be. That example I gave you guys about the insurance company up north, they're based out of New York. And so those guys had been fighting for over a year to get compliant until they started working with us. And within 3 months, we got them their SOC 2 audit done. And ever since, they're still a client. Ever since then, they have been compliant every year. So the way SOC 2 works is it's an annual audit that has to happen. And it's usually a CPA firm that does the audit. Every year, no problems. They pass the audit with flying colors and their customers are happy. The big thing that nobody talks about when it comes to compliance, any kind of framework that you look out there for compliance, one of the tenets is going to be security as a paradigm shift, right? And zero trust is one of the things that you might have already heard. I know more and more people are talking about it now. And what zero trust means in simple terms, it's basically we are not going to allow any application to run unless we know about it and we understand what it's doing. Simple concept, right? We are going to trust, but we're going to verify. My inner geek is going to come out a little bit. Windows historically has had the capability to only allow known applications to run. Anybody can enable that. The problem with enabling that is if you enable that feature, Windows does not know what to allow to run. So a lot of times, if you enable that without making any changes to the core system, Windows will not run right because it will end up blocking its own files that are required to make it run. So that's where zero trust architecture comes into play, where the zero trust provider knows the system files that Windows uses. They automatically trust those files. They know most of the well-known applications. They automatically trust them. And that way, your normal applications, mainstream applications, run fine, no issues. But when that one malware or hacker script tries to run, it does not know about it. It does not understand it. It does not let it run. Easy, simple. And this process does not take as many resources as some of your antiviruses take. The question comes out, well, I have a good antivirus. Why would I need zero trust? Antivirus is reactive. Antivirus is only going to catch a virus that it knows about. It is not proactive like zero trust. Zero trust is simply not going to allow anything to run unless it knows about it. You see that big shift? And that's what brings protection to your systems, your company, and keeps you safe. Some of the zero trust systems go one step further. And this is something that we experienced when we first started prototyping some of these technologies. We saw that certain applications were talking to machines in other countries, and we can track that by IP address. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to share my screen, I'm going to show you this here in a little bit because I think it'll be interesting, right? So I will show you what I mean by this. When we noticed this, like I remember there was one application, I won't name any names, but there was one application that was talking to an address in China. Nobody knew this until we implemented this zero trust infrastructure, and that's when we started noticing this traffic going in there. Long story short, it was legitimate traffic. One of the developers was based out of China. He had some development hooks in the system that he forgot to remove, and it was basically communicating with some of his lab machines in China. When it was communicating, we don't know, it could have communicated any kind of information, right? If we had not had the zero trust infrastructure in place, we would not have known about it. Let me share my screen really quick, and I will show you what I mean by when we look at this network traffic going to other countries. By the way, this is called ring fencing. You know, you put a fence ring around something. So this ring fencing is a really powerful feature. I'm going to share my screen right now. Make sure I share the right screen. So this is something that will that shows you ring fence in an actual environment. So as you can see up here, and I hope you can see it, the dates are just today. So this information is only from today. As you can see, a lot of machines are talking to different IP addresses, different places outside on a public network. Like for example, this machine right here is has incoming traffic from this IP address on this port. And it's saying that, hey, by default, I would have denied this. But the green, you know, the color of this box is green. That tells me that, hey, by default, it would have been denied, but we are allowing it because of a custom policy. By the way, port 443 is for web services. So this server probably has a web server running on it, and that's what somebody is hitting the web server, and that's why it is allowed. Now, down here is an interesting one. This is interesting because this is cmd.exe. It's trying to access the network and it is being ring fenced, and this red shows me that it is not allowed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, cmd.exe is a Windows file. It's a Windows process. It's the command line. Why is command line here trying to talk to something outside? It should not be talking to anything outside. And if this machine did not have any kind of zero trust software on it, it would have been able to talk to the outside world. And we don't know what it's talking about, like what it's trying to say. It could be exfiltrating data. That's just a fancy word of saying copying information outside somewhere. There are a few other things, like the one right below that is another machine trying to talk to this weird public IP address on port 80. Again, that is denied. These are the things, this is how ring fencing works in conjunction with zero trust. And let me start my presentation again. Next, we're going to go into security training. Now, zero trust is one thing. Every system out there, if it's connected to a network, should have zero trust on it. And number two is employee security training. Security training is basically minimizing human risk. I hate to put it this way, but you know, one of the inside jokes amongst techies is the weakest link is between the keyboard and the monitor. For any kind of compliance, any basic compliance requires security training. Most cyber liability providers out there will require that you have some kind of security training in place. Now, not only are they requiring that you have security training in place, if you have security training in place, you better be ready to provide the reports, how many people have actually taken security training. Normally, these insurance providers will not say this, but it's only after a breach or after you file, you know, for some kind of an incident, that's when this comes up, and they'll be like, well, we want to see your reports. How many people, what percent of people have taken security training at your company during the time of breach or approaching the time of breach? And if you are one of our clients, you probably hear from us all the time. You know, we kind of harp on this a little bit, maybe too much, where we talk about, hey, we want to get, you know, these users to start taking security. They're not taking security, and normally we can correlate people who don't take security training class are the ones who end up clicking on phishing links. So along with security training, another thing that you want to probably put in place is phishing simulation. And what that means is sending people malformed emails trying to trick them to click somewhere. And there's usually a correlation between training and those phishing clicks. So we know training works because we can see this data on the back end. And that's why every time we talk to customers about training, we give them this report, like if only 20% of people are taking security training at your organization, that's not good. If 80% of people are taking security training, that is awesome. I think 80% is on the high end. Usually we don't see that much uptake on training. I say usually. There has been, in my experience, there was one company that was at 100% training. It was a specialty case. They were working with a lot of confidential information, and I'll just leave it at that. So security training is very important. So much so that internally, we being an IT company, internally, we do security training as well. And there was one of our insurance providers, and he said one time, this was back when we first started, I did not used to take security training. And the guy asked me, he was like, hey, Nadeem, I want to see you take the security training. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm the one who made this. I'm the one who's making these trainings. What do you mean you want to see me take it? But he was right, because I started taking my own training, and I started finding things and realizing things. I started making connections that I had not made before. Now we don't build these training exercises internally. We have a third party that does that, and that's all the third party does is training. And I still to this day take training, even though it may seem it's trivial, but there's always one or two subtle things that I pick up that tell me that I need to keep taking these training classes. So very important, do take these training classes. They're fun. I mean, so training, yeah, sometimes it could be boring, but most of the better training providers out there, they make it fun, so it's engaging. And the courses are usually, the videos are like maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes, not more than 3 minutes. So they're not very long. Third thing that I want to talk about is documentation and policy gaps. You will not believe how many SMBs that when we first engage with them, they do not have any of the basics documented. What I mean by that is, for example, do you guys have an incident response policy? It's basically just something documented that if an incident happens, what do you do and which people do it, right? The worst time possible of trying to figure out who does what is when there is something big happening, when the incident happens. You don't want to be thinking at that time. You want it to be second nature. You want it to just pop. Like, people should automatically know what they're supposed to do. And how do you get to that point? You do tabletop exercises. So a lot of compliance will require you to have once a year tabletop exercise. It's like a fire drill. Simple fire drill, right? So you create a scenario, and then you run through it, and then you make sure that every person in whatever role they are in does what they're supposed to do. Now, we do this internally as well, and let me tell you this. Every time we've done these tabletop exercises, we have always modified our policy. We always learn something. Us being in the technology world, and we see things that a lot of people don't even hear about, but yet we learn something new every time we do a tabletop exercise. It is that important to do a tabletop exercise. And if you're not doing the tabletop exercises, when something bad happens, you will have a lot of risk, and you will have run into a lot of problems that could have been avoided just by doing maybe 30-minute once a year tabletop exercise. All these policies that I'm talking about, they should be written somewhere, so when somebody new comes into a role, you can give them this policy, and they can make sure that they follow it, they understand it, and they agree with it, right? You have to have buy-in from the users to get that update. If you have an incident response policy, give me a 3 in the chat, I'm just doing a quick and dirty poll on the back end to see how many people have these policies in place. And you want to make sure that when you do these incident response exercises, that you review these policies. Of course, they will automatically be reviewed because you're following them. And then at the end of every exercise that we do, we always have new findings. And like I said, we always find something new that we need to adjust on our policy because things change, the landscape changes, technology changes, and we need to accommodate for that. Another thing that is not talked about a lot is vendor management. I know it has nothing to do with IT. It's vendor management because you might be protected, but are all your vendors protected as well? If you are sending your, let's say, your customer data or some kind of confidential or personally identifiable information to your vendors or your subcontractors, do they have proper security settings and policies in place? You want to make sure that you have that. And like when you go through a SOC 2 audit or pretty much any kind of audit out there, the auditors expect tangible evidence of all of this, right? Undocumented efforts are just disregarded. Like, I don't get this a lot, but I remember when we first started doing this, we started to get companies compliant. We used to hear this a lot, which was, oh no, we have a policy, and it was like, well, where is it? Show me. And it's like, oh, it's all right here. That's not where you want the policy to be. It needs to be written down somewhere. And nowadays there are systems available where you can keep them electronically, where people can access them from their handheld, from their computers, or there are some companies that will print them out and put them in a fireproof box so you can get to it. But make sure all the roles that are going to be involved have access to that. The reason why they put it in a fireproof box is, number one, of course, if there's a fire, but usually the fireproof box will be waterproof as well. I have not seen a lot of fires causing damage, but I've seen quite a bit of water causing damage. So that's the reason behind that. Those are some of the things that you want to put in place. That's what I have for today. And now for that special moment, I'm gonna switch over to my next slide. This is what is next. So for people who attend this webinar, we are going to do a drawing for a cyber risk assessment. And this is going to be a no-cost cyber risk assessment to you. And the best part is that from the report that comes out of this assessment, you can get your IT team, your IT staff, or your third-party IT services company implement and fix some of these gaps. So you can go out and get that reduction in your cyber insurance premiums, or you can get cyber insurance. Some companies in some industries are just flat out denied unless they have certain things in place. And if you enjoyed this webinar, ask you that you scan that QR code on the right, the red one, and give us a Google review. Always appreciate that. We try to do these every last Thursday of every month, and look forward to seeing you again next month.